Hi, so here we are again at Gallery Oldham at the Landscape Inside Out exhibition. So it's a lovely, beautiful sunny day here, so hence my glasses have gone a little bit dark again, so apologies for that. So again today I am going to take a more detailed look at one of the areas of the exhibition, and this time it's the moors, the Moorland work. And I'm going to share with you, as usual, some of the drawings and the location inspiration work, and subsequently I'm going to share with you the paintings that I've created for this group. And this time they're divided into three different little groups of work, and I'll explain more of that as we go through. So without further ado, I'm going to turn around and get going. Okay. So here we are again at the drawing wall, and if you can see at the top are some of my winter in the blue and the more yellow ochre colours in the dark, some of the winter Moorland drawings done with charcoal and indigo pastel and paint. And then as we come down with the purple, there's more mixed media with acrylic paint as well of the summer moors with the heather. And right at the top on the right hand side are some smaller works I've done of the heather. So hopefully you get a sense of the sorts of studies I'm doing when I'm actually amongst the heather, and those dark black and indigo ones done of the winter moors were done from a distance looking across at the moors as opposed to being right on the moors. I'll just go in a little bit as close as I can stretch my arms so you can see some of these studies. Okay, and then here we are again, the concertinas that I do, and this very top shelf. These two concertinas were done without collage actually, but they're pastels and paints and inks and pencils in the usual way, apart from the fact that there's not collage. And this is of the summer moors, and hence the purple inks of the heather in flower. And the golds and oranges coming through there, which are all of the grasses that exist alongside the heather. And so once you're amongst it, you realise that it's not just the purple, but it's that lovely yellow and gold next to it that works so well with the purple heather, nature the artist. So that's the summer one that I did when the heather was in flower. And then if I go along, this is the winter one. The sun's coming through really brightly today. And if I go in, hopefully you can see some of those scratchy lines and marks. Some of these pages were done with snow and some without snow. And hopefully you can kind of tell which pages have snow and which not. And that was inspiration for my Moorland works too. Okay, so these are the 4 Heather Moors paintings I've got, which are all on cradle panel, and these are all mixed media collage, as a lot of my paintings are. And the other Heather Moors ones I've got are paper, and I'll talk about those separately. So I'm going to go through and share with you each of these in turn. And this first one is called High Waving Heather. And this one really is all about the topography of being up amongst the heather. I think there's this sense sometimes that the moors are flat, but really they're not. And this is all about those banks of heather that exist. And all of these 4 really are about the fact that it's not just the heather that contributes to this wonderful texture and feel of the heather on the moors, but it's these gorgeous golds and yellows of the grasses that wave and waft around. And some of them are quite orange and some of them are quite straw-like, these different species. And this painting is really about, as are a number of them, are about that. And this first one, High Waving Heather, is all about the banks as well of the heather. And hopefully you can see the textures and the papers and the writing and the marks. Okay, so if I now go down to this one is called You Lead the Way. And this one was one of the paintings that took me the longest. It's got probably about 10 layers. and it's lots of, again, layers of paint and paper. And this one really is about that idea of the pathway through, and you're walking through the heather. And as I say, I worked on this, and I had in my mind's eye what I wanted to achieve, and couldn't for a very long time. And then I realised it was because I was using very different techniques with this one that I needed to learn. And that's all about creating these sort of almost grid patterns, partly from lines and partly from flicks, through the colour, to create these little bands of light through, which almost look like the grasses. So that one, you lead the way. Okay, so if we go up to this one here, this is called Two Sides to the Story, and hopefully you can see the contrast between the intensity of the purple heather and then this gold and white and buff colour of the grasses. And again, I've been using flicking and scratching in to get the buff of the grasses, and then the different variety of colours of purple, and drips and collage and text incorporated as well. So that one is Two Sides to the Story. And then if we come down, this one is the intensity of now, and hopefully you can see the contrast of the different purples, and using the lines of purple to create this idea of the banks. And then we've got the yellowy golds of the grasses again, the Indian yellow and the buff colours, and then more text and marks and layers, and quite a lot of scratching in and marks and layers in this one, and using different types of mixed media mark making, and using oil pastel and drips and the different colours of the oil pastel and the pencil mixed together to create this feel of the heather on the banks. So that one, the intensity of now. If I can just move back, you can see all four of them again, just to finish with before we go over to look at the smaller works on paper. Okay, and here we have my 6 pieces of Heather Moore's work that is on thick Fabriano paper and float mounted. And these were all created in the studio based on this similar thoughts of being amongst the heather and the grasses up on the moors during the summer. And I'll just go into each of them individually so you can see. So this, and sorry about the reflections, but it is behind glass and on paper. So this one is called The Geology of Heather, and you can hopefully see not only the paint layers but also the collage and some of the text. And that one is The Geology of Heather. If I go along the top row, then this one is The Anatomy of Heather. And now you can see the sort of arching mounds of the heather in this one, and the marks and lines and textures, sort of with thoughts of the feel of being up there and those textures of that planting. So that's The Anatomy of Heather. This one is Heather and Gold, and again, if I go in, you can hopefully see the richness of marks and textures, some of which is from the collage and some of which is from the paint itself, which is scratched into, and other mark making tools used, like pencils and pastels and so on. So that one is Heather and Gold. And then I will come down to the next row, and this one is that reminiscent feel of walking amongst the heather and going down the paths. And although, as I mentioned before, sometimes it's imagined that the landscape up there in the moors is flat, but actually it isn't, and you've got these banks of heather, and this is called Through the Heather, this idea of thought of walking amongst it. And again, hopefully you can see this one is particularly rich in the paint layers and the scratching in, and some of the darks on this one are charcoal. So that one is Through the Heather. This one is called Patchwork Moor. There is this sense when you're up there amongst the grasses and the heather and all of the different mounds and shapes and patterns, that it's a bit like a patchwork, and that's what this one is really about. And there you can see some of the papers that I've used in quite a few of these Heather Moore's paintings, and again the richness of marks. So that one is Patchwork Moor, and then this final one here is called Banks of Heather. This actually was the first one that I did, and hopefully again about the fact that it's not flat, but there are these big banks and lots of different marks and shapes and textures which I'm trying to reflect here in this paint. And hopefully with these paperworks, although there's multiple layers, there's an energy that I like to think these paperworks have, which is why I wanted to include works on paper as well. And although the ones on panel and canvas have energy, there's a slight difference with the immediacy of the paper. Okay, so I'm going to show you my three largest Moore's paintings now. These are all 800 by 800 canvases, all about the winter moors from a distance. And if I can just take you through, the centre one is all about the snowstorm coming across the valley. The one on the left is called Clarity of Calm, and that's about the calmness and the clarity that you get when the weather is quite flat. And then the one on the right is Chilly Morning, all about the pink skies, wonderful pink skies during the early morning. If I go into each of them in turn now, this one, as I was saying, they're all called Touching Distances, by the way, because they're all about those views across the valley during the winter, actually during lockdown when we couldn't get onto the moors. And if I go in close, you can see some of the textures. And there's a lot of layering on these of paints and inks and collage, and hopefully you can see how that layering occurs and the way the marks are made. If I just go in again, you can see some of those papers as well as the paint and inks and drips and marks that are made. And that which you're showing now is the inks dripping down. So that one is Clarity of Calm. If we move into Snowstorm Beginnings, this is the one in the centre. And again, a real richness of inks and paints and collage. And this lovely blue is the indigo blue paint. Then if I come in closer, you can see some of the text of the collage papers, which are actually maps in this one. And the white is the snow effects of the snowstorm coming across the valley. There's lots of dripping of paint on this one, as well as the richness of collage and marks. Let's go in so that you can see those papers and the layering effects. And that kind of rather chilly nature of the white against the blue. Okay, so that's Snowstorm Beginnings. And then if we go into this final one, this one is the Chilly Morning. And again, much richness of texture of papers. These are actually sewing pattern papers that you can see there with the lovely lines. And then there's a mixture of collage, some of handmade papers, some bought papers, all layered together to create this sort of texture that you see if you're looking across the valley to the moors from the residential streets. And these rich colours and marks and scratchings in will give you that effect. Okay, so that one's Chilly Morning. I'll just pull back now, you can see all three of them together. So thanks very much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed that sort of review of the Moorland work, and please do like and subscribe if you're not already. And apologies for some of the noise that's in the background, because there is building works going on, so I hope that wasn't too sort of disruptive. And I just wanted to show you that this catalogue of all of the paintings in the exhibition is available, and it's for sale, and I will share with you a link in the notes to that catalogue, so that if you want to purchase it so that it gets sent to you, then we can can do that. Okay, thanks a lot, and I'll catch you next time. Bye bye.